And we will gather here when victory is achieved in Ukraine for a great celebration here with the Ukraine community, and in doing so, to also honor all those who gave their lives in this war and all those who sacrificed so much in Ukraine to defeat the madman who wanted to enslave not only Ukraine, but our entire world with his evil delusions. Now, it is my great pleasure, once again, to welcome and introduce the 110th Mayor of the City of New York, Mayor Eric Adams.
All right. Thank you so much, and I'm joined here with my colleagues, Congressman Nadler, the Borough President Levine, and so many that have come together as one to represent the spirit and energy of not only New York, but America on how we stand with the Ukrainian people. And I'm so happy to be here with the Council General of Ukraine, who is really representing the energy and spirit of Ukrainian people. New York has the largest Ukrainian population outside of Ukraine right here in New York City. And we're proud of having that energy and spirit. And any conflict that plays out on the global scale plays out on the streets of New York City. The bombs that are bursting in Kyiv are breaking our hearts here in New York and throughout our entire country. And today, the raising of the flag is also to raise the energy and the spirit of the Ukrainian people to know that we are united together. And I'm so proud of seeing the resiliency and the clear spirit of the Ukrainian people, that they won't surrender to terrorist acts, they won't surrender to the violence, and they won't surrender to protecting their homeland. That is the spirit of who we are as Americans. We know what it is to fight on behalf of our homeland, and you are showing that same energy and spirit. So today, we are united, we stand with you, we are part of the Ukrainian people today, and saying that we would never surrender, never give in, and always stand united together. Thank you for allowing me to be here and participate in raising the flag and the spirit of the Ukrainian people. Thank you.
Council General Alexei Helikov. On July 9, 1776, New Yorkers marched down Lower Broadway when word of independence reached our city from Philadelphia. That day, they broke through the large gate, the same fence still surrounding Bowling Green today, and destroyed the statue of the King of England in the center of Bowling Green in declaring their freedom and independence. 7 years later, General Washington returned to Bowling Green to raise the new American flag to fly high over New York City. Today is the most important flag raising in New York City since 1783, 239 years later, right here where George Washington stood. Now Ukraine has its own George Washington, and your President Zelensky, please tell him the story of Bowling Green and ask him to join us here in the not too distant future when Ukraine is victorious and the invaders have been expelled, to come here with Mayor Adams, raise the Ukrainian flag at Bowling Green in celebration. Right now, it is my great pleasure to introduce Ukraine's Council General in New York. Council General.
Thank you, Mr. Bigelow. Thank you, Bowling Green Association. Thank you, the New York City. Mayor Adams, Excellencies, dear colleagues and friends, ladies and gentlemen, дорога українська громада. Thank you all for having me today on this wonderful occasion, raising first time ever of the Ukrainian and American flags over the New York City, together in solidarity with my country, solidarity that Ukraine needs now vitally, suffering for already 1 month from unprovoked full-scale war waged against my country by Putin's Russia. Having failed to make Ukraine surrender after a blitzkrieg due to unbreakable spirit, braveness and patriotism of Ukrainian defenders, the largest on the continent, and we know that for sure now, the most barbaric army in the world, encircled Ukrainian cities and shells, some say indiscriminately, but we are confident, intentionally, residential houses, hospitals, kindergartens, and even maternity homes in besieged cities and towns, causing severe damage and numerous casualties among civilians. The residential areas of such cities as Kharkiv, Chernihiv, Sumy, Mariupol, Melitopol, outskirts of Kiev, and many others are intensively shelled, leaving daily dozens of innocent civilians killed and wounded. The war situation remains at the besieged city of Mariupol, which is now almost destroyed. Daily, from 50 to 100 aviation bombs are dropped by Russians. Russia's crimes include bombardment of a drama theater where up to 1,300 civilians were being sheltered, of an art school which served as a shelter for around 400 civilians, and seizure of a hospital with 400 civilians in it used as a human shield. The UNOHCR Office for Commissioner of Refugees recorded 2,510 confirmed civilian casualties in Ukraine, almost 1,000 killed and more than 1,500 injured. It's data from March 21. And the OHCR believes that the real figures are considerably higher. Accordingly to the prosecutor of Ukraine, the general prosecutor of Ukraine, 121 children were killed by Russian invaders and 168 injured. Kindergarten and schools, universities and hospitals, airports and fuel stations, bridges, food warehouses and water reservoirs are targeted. 554 educational institutions, more than 100 hospitals, more than 3,780 residential buildings and 28 religious buildings were damaged or destroyed only on the territory controlled by Ukraine. In the city of Kharkiv alone, 1,000 houses were entirely destroyed. Forced with logistical challenges, Russian troops began pillaging local residents and robbing humanitarian convoys. The Russian army in Ukraine has been ordered to switch to self-sufficiency, Kremlin-sanctioned looting. The main efforts are now focused on establishing of humanitarian corridors, which are regularly violated by the Russian troops as the humanitarian situation deteriorates. We urgently need humanitarian assistance. According to the Office of the President of Ukraine, as of 22nd March, Ukraine received during 2 weeks of March more than 100,000 tons of humanitarian aid. We are grateful to our partners and expect a more active involvement of international organizations in humanitarian aid, including establishment of humanitarian corridors blocked by Russian troops, ensuring delivery of humanitarian relief to the medical facilities and provision of critical food supplies to the civilian population. Ending the war launched by Russia remains Ukraine's key priority. We urgently need ceasefire, but talks with Russia are far from being optimistic, since Putin's plan remains the same. He literally does not recognize the right of Ukraine to exist. Whether the Russian dictator succeeds in snuffing out Ukraine will depend not just on Ukrainians, not just on our astonishing courage, which is not in doubt, but on the West's continued determination to give Ukraine more help that it sorely needs. Ladies and gentlemen, Ukraine is grateful to all our partner countries for the help provided. I wish to particularly express our gratefulness to the United States for its strong support on all the levels, and wish to particularly thank the City Mayor Adams for swift response and cooperation. We are further strengthening with your dedicated office to better help Ukraine. Cooperation with our Ukrainian community in New York, who works now tirelessly 24/7 to help our native land, Батьківщина. We thank all of you, but today we need more help. Obviously, to help us, countries can do two things: leaving us fighting ourselves, our territory. First, send us necessary weapons. And second, impose strengthened sanctions on Russia. New packages of sanctions, systemic and consolidated, until the Russian military machine stops, are vitally needed. And with regard to the weaponry, let us be frank. There is no division on the kind of weaponry to be provided to Ukraine. Each unit, each machinery, when it's used to defend Ukrainian territory, purely relates to defensive weaponry. We are convinced we will win this defensive war against Russia. And immediately after, we, with our friends, will start rebuilding my beautiful, peaceful country and taking back our compatriots, refugees. And please, stay assured, Ukraine will never forget your helping hand. To conclude, ladies and gentlemen, let me quote my President Zelensky, who said in his address to the US Congress recently, "Today the Ukrainian people are defending not only Ukraine. We are fighting for the values of Europe and the world, sacrificing our lives in the name of the future. That is why today the American people are helping not just Ukraine, but Europe and the world to keep the planet alive, to keep justice and history." And let me express my personal feeling that those two beautiful flags being raised today over the New York City symbolize further strengthened international solidarity and further help which would support us on our way to combating the evil of a planetary scale, the Putin's aggressive Russia. Thank you very much for this event. Thank you very much for your strong stance with Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you, Council General. We will now be raising the flags. We have two wonderful Ukrainian singers. First, we'll raise the American flag, then the Ukrainian flag. With the permission of Mayor Adams, we are going to continue to keep flying the Ukrainian flag every day and night beside the American flag until victory is achieved. I don't think that's being done anywhere else, but with the Mayor's permission, we will do that. Thank you.
Can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleam, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave? усміхнеться доля. Згинуть наші вороженьки, як роса на сонці. Запануєм і ми, браття, у своїй сторонці. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду.